In a world where money buys everything except time, two souls from opposite ends of life were about to collide. Emma Chin was just 17 when she started volunteering at Westlake Memorial Hospital. Not for college applications or community service hours, but because the hospital had been her only real home. Abandoned as a baby, she'd grown up in the foster system, bouncing between homes until she aged out. The hospital staff had always shown her kindness during her frequent childhood illnesses, and now she returned to give back the only thing she had, her time. And her voice. Emma sang. Not professionally, not even particularly well by classical standards. But there was something about her voice, raw, honest, and filled with an emotion that seemed impossible for someone so young. She sang to patients who had no visitors, to the elderly who couldn't remember their own names but somehow remembered lyrics from their youth. She sang because music had been her only constant companion. Maxwell Harrington III was dying. The 82-year-old tech billionaire had built an empire worth $47 billion, owned homes on 3 continents, and had revolutionized artificial intelligence. What he didn't have was anyone who cared if he lived or died. 3 ex-wives, estranged children who only called when they needed money, and an army of employees who feared him more than they respected him. 6 months at most, the doctors had told him. Pancreatic cancer. Aggressive. Inoperable. Maxwell had checked into the hospital's VIP wing under a false name. He didn't want the press, the business vultures, or his family circling as he withered away. He wanted to die as he had lived, on his own terms, answering to no one. It was a Tuesday evening when Emma first walked past his room. The door was slightly ajar, and she heard the unmistakable sound of someone crying. Not loud sobs, but the quiet, desperate weeping of someone who thought they were alone. She hesitated. The VIP wing was technically off-limits to volunteers. But something pulled her forward. "Hello," she called softly, pushing the door open slightly. "I'm Emma. I volunteer here. Would you like some company?" The room was dimly lit, but she could make out the silhouette of a thin man sitting by the window, his back to her. He didn't turn around. "Go away," he said, his voice hoarse. "I don't need your pity." Emma should have left. Any reasonable person would have. But Emma had never been reasonable. "I don't pity you," she said simply. "I just thought you might like to hear a song." Maxwell turned then, his face gaunt and pale in the moonlight streaming through the window. His eyes, red-rimmed from crying, narrowed suspiciously. "A song," he scoffed. "What good is a song to a dying man?" Emma shrugged. "Sometimes a song is all we have." Without waiting for permission, she began to sing. It wasn't a famous song or even a particularly good one, just a lullaby her first foster mother had sung to her before sending her back to the system. But as the simple melody filled the sterile hospital room, something changed in Maxwell's face. For the first time in decades, someone was giving him something without expecting anything in return. When she finished, the room was silent except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. "My mother used to sing that," Maxwell finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Before she died. I was 5. Emma nodded. "It's a good song." "Why are you here?" he asked, suddenly suspicious again. "Did someone send you? Are you looking for a story to sell to the tabloids?" Emma laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that seemed to surprise them both. "I don't even know who you are," she admitted. "I'm just a volunteer. I sing to people who look like they could use a song." Maxwell studied her face, searching for deception and finding none. "Come back tomorrow," he said finally. It wasn't a request. Emma smiled. "Only if you say please." For a moment, Maxwell looked shocked. No one had spoken to him that way in years. Then, to his own surprise, he laughed. "Please," he said, the word unfamiliar on his tongue. As Emma left the room, neither of them knew that this chance encounter would change both their lives forever. Neither could have predicted the secrets that would unravel, the dangers that lurked in the shadows, or the extraordinary journey they were about to begin. Because Maxwell Harrington III wasn't just a dying billionaire. And Emma Chin wasn't just an orphan with a beautiful voice. The truth was far more complicated and far more dangerous than either of them could imagine. For the next 2 weeks, Emma visited Maxwell every evening. Hospital rules stated volunteers should rotate patients, but she made excuses to return to room 718. Something about the grumpy old billionaire called to her. At first, she just sang. Old folk songs, pop hits from decades past, even hymns she'd learned in the church-run group home where she'd spent 3 miserable years. Maxwell never requested specific songs, but she could tell from his reactions which ones touched him. By the third visit, he started talking. I built my first computer when I was 12, he told her one evening as the sunset painted the hospital room in shades of orange and gold. Everyone said I was wasting my time. This was 1954. Computers were the size of rooms back then. Emma sat in the chair beside his bed, listening intently. Were you always good with technology? Maxwell's thin lips curved into a rare smile. I wasn't good with people. Machines made sense. They did what you told them to do. No disappointments. Sounds lonely, Emma said without thinking. Maxwell's face hardened. I didn't have time for lonely. I was too busy changing the world. But Emma wasn't intimidated by his sudden coldness. You can change the world and still be lonely. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. For a moment, Maxwell looked like he might snap at her. Then his shoulders sagged. You're too smart for your own good, he muttered. How did you end up here, anyway? Singing to dying old men instead of living your life. Emma's smile faltered. This is my life. The hospital, it's the closest thing to home I've ever had. Something in her voice made Maxwell look at her, really look at her, for the first time. Beyond the cheerful volunteer with the soothing voice, he saw something familiar. The wariness in her eyes, the careful way she held herself, always slightly ready to flee. He recognized it because he saw it in the mirror every day. You're an orphan, he said. It wasn't a question. Emma nodded. Since birth. No record of my parents. Just a note with my first name and birthday. Maxwell's heart monitor beeped slightly faster. And when is your birthday? April 17th, she said. I'll be 18 next month. Maxwell went very still. What year were you born? 2007, Emma replied, confused by his intensity. Why? Maxwell didn't answer. Instead, he reached for the water glass on his bedside table, but his hand trembled so badly that he knocked it over, sending water spilling across the floor. Are you okay? Emma jumped up, grabbing tissues to mop up the spill. Should I call a nurse? No, Maxwell said sharply. Then, more gently, no, I'm fine. Just tired. I think you should go now. Emma hesitated. Did I say something wrong? No, Maxwell said, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. Come back tomorrow. Please. After Emma left, Maxwell pulled out a phone he hadn't used in years. His hands shook as he dialed a number from memory. It's me, he said when someone answered. I need you to look into something. A girl named Emma Chen. Born April 17th, 2007. Abandoned at birth. He listened for a moment, then continued, his voice barely audible. Yes, I know what that would mean. Just do it. And Victor, be discreet. If it's true, there are people who would kill to keep this quiet. As Maxwell hung up, he didn't notice the shadow that passed by his door, or the figure that had paused just long enough to overhear his conversation. The next day, Emma arrived at the hospital to find Maxwell's room empty. The nurses told her he'd been moved for specialized treatment, but wouldn't say where. When she pressed for details, the head nurse pulled her aside. Listen, Emma. Mr. Smith was not who he claimed to be. It's better if you forget about him. But Emma couldn't forget. Especially after she returned to her tiny apartment that night to find it completely ransacked and a mysterious envelope on her bed containing a key, an address, and a note in shaky handwriting. They know about you now. You're in danger. Go to this address. Trust no one. Not even me. Emma stared at the note, her heart pounding. Who was they? What did they know about her? And why would it put her in danger? She had no answers, but as sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer to her building, she made a split-second decision. She grabbed her backpack, stuffed it with essentials, and slipped out the back exit just as black SUVs pulled up to the front of her building. As she disappeared into the night, Emma had no idea that her simple act of kindness, singing to a lonely old man, had just made her the most hunted person in the city. Because Maxwell Harrington III had just discovered something impossible. Something that would rewrite both their histories. Something worth killing for. The address led Emma to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. With every step, her instincts screamed at her to turn back, but the memory of those black SUVs kept her moving forward. The key unlocked a rusted side door that opened to reveal nothing special. Just an empty warehouse with concrete floors and high ceilings. Emma's heart sank. Had this all been some cruel joke? Then she noticed a faint blue light coming from beneath what looked like an ordinary freight elevator. She pressed the call button, and to her surprise, it lit up. The elevator doors slid open silently. "This is insane," she muttered to herself as she stepped inside. There were no buttons, just a small screen that suddenly illuminated with the words, "Palm scan required." Emma hesitated, then placed her hand on the screen. A blue light scanned her palm, and the screen flashed, identity confirmed. "Welcome, Emma." The elevator descended so smoothly she barely felt it move. When the doors opened again, Emma gasped. She was standing in what looked like a high-tech bunker. Computer screens lined the walls, displaying news feeds, security camera footage, and data streams she couldn't begin to understand. In the center of the room stood a man she'd never seen before, tall, African-American, with close-cropped gray hair and the alert posture of someone military-trained. "Emma Chun," he said, his deep voice echoing in the space. "I'm Victor. Maxwell's head of security for the past 30 years. Where is he?" Emma demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. "What's going on?" Victor gestured to a door at the far end of the room. "He's through there. He'll explain everything. But I should warn you, he's not doing well. The stress of the past few days has accelerated his condition." Emma pushed past Victor and through the door. The room beyond was set up like a hospital suite, with medical equipment surrounding a bed where Maxwell lay, looking even more frail than when she'd last seen him. "Emma," he whispered, his face lighting up despite his obvious pain. "You came." "You didn't give me much choice," she said, holding up the note. "My apartment was trashed. There were men in black SUVs. What's happening?" Maxwell gestured weakly to a chair beside his bed. "Sit down. What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible." Emma sat, her heart pounding. 30 years ago, Maxwell began. I was working on a project. Cutting-edge genetic research. We were trying to create enhanced human capabilities, intelligence, longevity, resistance to disease. It was supposed to help humanity. He paused, coughing violently. Emma poured him water from a pitcher beside the bed. "The project was called Genesis," he continued after drinking. "We made breakthroughs that were decades ahead of their time. But then, something went wrong. One of our test subjects, a brilliant young scientist named Mei Chun, discovered that the military wanted to weaponize our research. She tried to expose them." Emma froze at the name. "Chun. Like my last name." Maxwell nodded slowly. "Mei was pregnant when she went into hiding. She knew they would never stop looking for her, or her child. A child who would carry the genetic modifications she had helped create." Emma's mind raced. "Are you saying, this Mei Chun was my mother?" "DNA doesn't lie," Maxwell said softly, gesturing to a tablet beside his bed. Victor ran the tests 3 times. "You are Mei's daughter." Emma picked up the tablet with trembling hands. On the screen was a DNA comparison showing a 99.9% maternal match between her and someone named Mei Chun. "But why would that put me in danger now? After all these years?" Maxwell's face darkened. "Because the Genesis project didn't end when Mei disappeared. It went underground. The same people who wanted to weaponize it then are still out there. And they've been looking for Mei's child for 18 years. "Why?" Emma whispered. "Because you're the key, Emma. The final piece of the puzzle. Mei didn't just carry the genetic modifications, she improved them. And she encoded something in her child's DNA. Something they've been trying to recreate for decades without success." Emma stood up, backing away from the bed. "This is crazy. I'm nobody. I'm just a foster kid who volunteers at a hospital. A foster kid with perfect pitch, who's never been sick a day in her life despite growing up in the system," Maxwell countered. "Who can memorize complex music after hearing it once. Who heals faster than normal. Haven't you ever wondered why you're different?" Emma's mind flashed to all the times foster parents had called her strange or unnatural. The school nurse who'd been baffled by her immune system. The music teacher who'd called her abilities impossible for someone with no training. "If what you're saying is true," she said slowly, "then how do you fit into all this? Why tell me now?" Maxwell's eyes filled with tears. "Because I'm the one who betrayed your mother. I told them where to find her when she tried to run. I didn't know she was pregnant. I thought I was protecting the project." His voice broke. "I've spent the last 18 years trying to find you before they did. To make it right." Emma felt like the floor was tilting beneath her. And now they know who you are," Maxwell said grimly. "When I started asking questions about you, it triggered alerts in their system. They've been watching me for years, waiting for exactly this moment. A loud bang from the outer room made them both jump. Victor burst through the door, gun drawn. "They're here," he said tersely. "We need to move. Now." Maxwell struggled to sit up. "The failsafe, Victor. It's time." Victor nodded grimly and moved to a panel on the wall, entering a complex code. "What failsafe?" Emma demanded. "What's happening?" Maxwell grabbed her hand with surprising strength. "Listen to me, Emma. Everything you need to know is in here." He pressed a small metal object into her palm, a USB drive. "Your mother left this for you. It explains everything, what you are, what you can do, and how to finish what she started." "I don't understand," Emma said, tears streaming down her face. "You will," Maxwell promised. "But right now, you need to go with Victor. He'll take you somewhere safe." The sounds of fighting echoed from the outer room. "What about you?" Emma asked, already knowing the answer. Maxwell smiled sadly. "I'm dying anyway. Might as well make it count for something." Victor appeared at her side. "We need to go. Now." As Victor pulled her toward a hidden door at the back of the room, Emma looked back one last time. Maxwell had pulled himself up to a sitting position and was typing furiously on a keyboard. "Maxwell," she called out. He looked up, his eyes clear and determined. "Sing for me one more time," he said. "Just one line." And despite everything, the danger, the revelations, the world crashing down around her, Emma sang. The same lullaby she'd sung the first night they met. Maxwell closed his eyes, a peaceful expression crossing his face. "Thank you," he whispered. As Victor pulled her through the hidden door, Emma heard Maxwell's voice one last time. "Find the others, Emma. You're not alone." The door sealed behind them just as explosions rocked the bunker. Maxwell Harrington III had made his final sacrifice. And Emma Chen's real journey was just beginning. The tunnel stretched before them, dimly lit by emergency lights that cast eerie shadows on the concrete walls. Victor moved with military precision, one hand gripping Emma's arm, the other holding his weapon ready. "Where does this lead?" Emma gasped, struggling to keep up with his pace. "Underground transit system," Victor replied without slowing. "Maxwell built it decades ago. Connects to 6 different exit points across the city." Another explosion rocked the tunnel, sending dust raining down on them. Emma flinched but kept moving. "Who are these people?" she demanded. "What do they want with me?" Victor glanced back at her, his expression grim. "They call themselves the Directive. Started as a Black Ops division of military intelligence, but went private when the government tried to shut them down. They've been hunting for Mei Chen's research for almost 2 decades. They reached a junction where the tunnel split in 3 directions. Victor hesitated, then pulled Emma toward the right passage. "Maxwell said my mother encoded something in my DNA," Emma said, her mind racing to process everything. "What could possibly be in my genes that's worth killing for?" "The key to controlled human evolution," Victor said bluntly. "May discovered how to activate dormant genetic potential without side effects. The Directive wants to use it to create super soldiers. May wanted to cure diseases, extend human lifespan, unlock the full potential of the human mind." They reached what looked like a subway platform, complete with a sleek, silver pod that resembled a miniature train car. "Get in," Victor ordered, pushing her toward the open door. "This will take you to a safe house outside the city." Emma balked. "What about you?" Victor's face softened slightly. "Someone needs to stay behind, make sure they follow the wrong trail." He pressed something into her hand, a small flip phone that looked at least 15 years old. "This is untraceable. 1 number programmed in. When you reach the safe house, call it." "Victor." "There's no time," he cut her off. Maxwell spent his fortune and the last years of his life preparing for this moment. Don't waste his sacrifice. The sound of boots echoed from the tunnel behind them. "Go." Victor shoved her into the pod and slammed his palm on a scanner beside the door. It slid shut just as armed figures appeared on the platform. The last thing Emma saw was Victor turning to face them, gun raised, as the pod accelerated into darkness. Alone in the speeding pod, Emma finally let herself break down. Sobs racked her body as the events of the past 24 hours crashed over her. Her entire identity, everything she thought she knew about herself, had been a lie. Or at least, not the whole truth. When her tears finally subsided, she looked down at the USB drive Maxwell had given her. It was small, metallic, with a strange symbol etched into its surface, a double helix intertwined with what looked like musical notes. The pod had no computer, no way to access whatever was on the drive. Emma tucked it securely into her bra, then examined the old flip phone Victor had given her. True to his word, it had just one number programmed in, labeled simply safe. After what felt like hours, the pod began to slow. Emma tensed, preparing for whatever might be waiting. The door slid open to reveal a garage. Ordinary, with concrete floors and walls lined with tools. A dusty SUV sat in one corner. Emma stepped out cautiously. The garage door was closed, but sunlight filtered through small windows near the ceiling. She was about to explore further when she noticed a manila envelope taped to the hood of the SUV. Her name was written on it in Maxwell's shaky handwriting. Inside the envelope, she found car keys, several bundles of cash, a passport in the name Emma Song with her photo, and a handwritten note. Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry for the burden I've placed on you, but you're stronger than you know. The safe house is stocked with everything you'll need. The USB contains your mother's research and a message she recorded for you before she died. To access it, you'll need to use the computer in the study. It's configured to read the encryption. Trust your instincts. Your mother built safeguards into your genetics that even you don't know about yet. They'll activate when you need them. There are others like you, children of the original Genesis researchers. Your mother wasn't the only one who hid their child. Find them. Together, you can finish what your parents started. I can't undo the harm I caused, but I hope this gives you a fighting chance. Maxwell. Emma's hands trembled as she read the note a second time. Others like her. What did that mean? And what safeguards had her mother built into her DNA? The sound of a helicopter passing overhead snapped her back to reality. She needed to move. The SUV started on the first try. Emma hit the garage door opener clipped to the visor, and sunlight flooded in as the door raised. She pulled out onto a gravel driveway that led to what appeared to be a remote country road. Mountains rose in the distance, and pine trees surrounded the property. She had no idea where she was, but the GPS in the car was already programmed with a destination labeled Safe House. According to the display, it was about 30 minutes away. As Emma drove, her mind raced with questions. Who was her mother, really? What had she been capable of? And most importantly, what was Emma herself capable of? She thought back to all the strange things she'd noticed about herself over the years. Her perfect pitch. Her photographic memory for music. The way she never got sick, even when flu tore through group homes. The time she'd fallen from a second-story window at age 8 and walked away with just a few bruises. Had those all been signs of her enhanced genetics? The safe house turned out to be a modern cabin nestled in the woods, with large windows and a wraparound porch. It looked peaceful, ordinary, not the kind of place you'd expect to hide from shadowy government operatives. Emma parked in the carport and approached the front door cautiously. There was a keypad instead of a traditional lock. She tried her birthday, April 17, 2007, and to her surprise, the door unlocked with a soft click. The interior was minimalist but comfortable. Open floor plan, modern kitchen, living area with a fireplace. Nothing that screamed high-tech hideout, until she found the study. Unlike the rest of the cabin's warm, natural aesthetic, the study was all sleek technology. A state-of-the-art computer setup dominated one wall, while another was covered in monitors showing security camera feeds from around the property. Emma sat at the computer, which came to life at her approach. A prompt appeared on screen, place USB drive in port. With trembling fingers, Emma inserted the drive Maxwell had given her. The screen immediately filled with complex code, then resolved into a simple interface with two folders. She clicked on for Emma first. A video file opened, and Emma gasped. The woman on screen was unmistakably related to her, same heart-shaped face, same wide-set eyes, though the woman's were dark brown while Emma's were an unusual amber color. "Hello, my daughter," the woman said, her voice accented but clear. "If you're watching this, then you've found your way to Maxwell, and he has kept his promise to protect you." Emma's heart pounded as she stared at her mother's face. "My name is Mei Chun. I am a geneticist. What I'm about to tell you will sound impossible, but I promise you it's true." May explained how the Genesis Project had started as a humanitarian effort, brilliant scientists working to unlock human potential to cure diseases and extend lifespans. But when military interests took over, everything changed. They wanted weapons, not healing, May said, her expression hardening. "When I discovered I was pregnant with you, I knew I couldn't let them get their hands on you. You see, I had already begun the treatments on myself before conception. You would be born with the enhancements already integrated into your DNA, the first natural-born enhanced human. Emma felt dizzy as her mother continued. But I did more than just pass on the enhancements. I modified them, improved them, and I hid something in your genetic code, something they would kill to possess. May leaned closer to the camera, her eyes intense. Your voice, Emma. It's not just beautiful, it's a key. The specific vibration patterns you can create activate certain genetic sequences. With the right training, you can use your voice to heal, to enhance, even to disable the modifications in others if they're being misused. Emma thought of how patients at the hospital always seemed more peaceful after she sang to them. How Maxwell had responded to her voice from the very first day. There are 5 others like you, May continued. Children of my colleagues who also went into hiding. Each carries a different piece of the puzzle. Together, you can ensure this power is used for good, not destruction. May's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there to watch you grow up. To protect you. But know that everything I did for you and for the future of humanity. Find the others, Emma. Complete what we started. The video ended with May singing the same lullaby Emma had sung to Maxwell. The same song that had connected them across time and loss. As the screen went dark, Emma sat in stunned silence. Then the old flip phone in her pocket rang, startling her back to reality. She answered with shaking hands. Emma. A woman's voice, unfamiliar. This is Dr. Sarah Lindstrom. I worked with your mother. How do I know I can trust you? Emma demanded. Because I have a daughter too, the woman replied. Her name is Lydia. She's like you. And right now, she's in danger. Emma closed her eyes, making a split-second decision that would change everything. What do you need me to do? The directive found Lydia yesterday, Dr. Lindstrom said, her voice urgent. They're holding her at a research facility outside Seattle. She's the second one they've captured. Second. Emma's blood ran cold. Yes. They already have Noah Ikeda. They're trying to extract the genetic keys from them, but they can't do it without all 6 of you. That's why they're hunting you so desperately. Emma thought of Maxwell's last words, find the others. You're not alone. How do I find the others? She asked. How do I stop these people? There's a file on that drive called Resonance Protocol, Dr. Lindstrom said. It contains everything you need to know about your abilities and how to use them. Study it. Then call this number again. We have people who can help you, the last of the original Genesis scientists who haven't been captured or killed. As Emma hung up, she felt something shift inside her. The fear and confusion were still there, but alongside them grew something new, determination. She was no longer just an orphan with a pretty voice. She was her mother's daughter, a living key, perhaps even a weapon. And she had a mission now, to find the others, to master her abilities, and to stop the directive before they could weaponize what her mother had created to heal. Emma turned back to the computer and opened the research folder. It was time to learn who she really was, and what she was capable of. 3 days later, Emma barely recognized herself. Not physically, though she had dyed her hair from black to blonde and traded her hospital volunteer clothes for tactical gear found in the safe house closet. The real change was deeper. She had spent 72 hours absorbing her mother's research, training her voice using the Resonance Protocol, and communicating with Dr. Lindstrom's underground network of Genesis survivors. What she had learned was both terrifying and exhilarating. The human voice, her mother had discovered, could create vibration patterns that activated or deactivated certain genetic sequences, but only if the voice belonged to someone with the right genetic markers. May had encoded these markers into Emma's DNA before birth, along with enhanced physical and mental capabilities. Each of the 6 Genesis children carried different abilities and different pieces of the activation sequence. Emma's gift was voice modulation, the ability to produce sound frequencies with extraordinary precision. With practice, she could use these frequencies to influence biological functions in herself and others. In just 3 days, she had learned to sing notes that could accelerate her own healing, enhance her strength temporarily, and even induce sleep in others. But these were just the basics. According to her mother's notes, with all 6 Genesis children working together, they could unlock abilities that bordered on the miraculous. Now, as Emma packed a small backpack with essentials, she reviewed the plan in her mind. Dr. Lindstrom's team had located the facility where Lydia and Noah were being held. They had also made contact with 2 other Genesis children, twins named Eli and Eliza Dawson, who were hiding in Canada. The sixth child, Marcus Reyes, remained missing. Emma's role was crucial. Her voice could temporarily disable the security systems at the facility, which had been designed with biometric safeguards created from the original Genesis research. "Are you ready?" Dr. Lindstrom asked over the secure line they'd established. "As ready as I'll ever be," Emma replied, zipping up her backpack. "Any word from Victor?" There had been no sign of Maxwell's head of security since their separation in the tunnel. Emma feared the worst but clung to hope. "Nothing yet," Dr. Lindstrom said. "But that doesn't mean anything. Victor knows how to disappear when necessary." Emma nodded, though the doctor couldn't see her. "And the extraction team?" "In position. They'll meet you at the rendezvous point in 2 hours. Remember, Emma, your primary objective is to free Lydia and Noah. Don't engage the directive forces directly if you can avoid it. You're still learning to control your abilities." "Understood," Emma said, though part of her burned to confront the people who had hunted her mother, killed Maxwell, and now threatened everything she was beginning to care about. As she ended the call and headed for the SUV, Emma thought about how drastically her life had changed. Just a week ago, her biggest concern had been which patients to sing to during her hospital volunteer shift. Now she was preparing to infiltrate a high-security facility to rescue genetically enhanced teenagers she'd never met. The drive to the rendezvous point took just under an hour. Emma parked the SUV in an abandoned lot as instructed and waited, watching the sun begin to set over the mountains. A black van pulled up precisely at the scheduled time. The side door slid open to reveal a team of 4, 3 men and 1 woman, all dressed in tactical gear similar to Emma's. Emma nodded, trying to calm her racing heart. "And once we're inside, Lydia and Noah are being held in the sublevels," Raven said. "Separate containment units. We'll split into 2 teams to extract them simultaneously." As they approached the facility, disguised as a pharmaceutical research center, Emma felt a strange sensation building in her chest. A humming, almost, as if something inside her was resonating with something nearby. "I can feel them," she whispered, surprised. Raven glanced at her sharply. "What do you mean?" "Lydia and Noah," Emma explained. "It's like hearing a familiar song from far away. I can sense them." The team exchanged meaningful looks. "That's not in the briefing materials," Hawk said cautiously. "It's happening faster than we expected," Raven murmured. "The proximity is accelerating her development." "Is that bad?" Emma asked, suddenly worried. Raven shook her head. "Not bad. Just unexpected. Your mother theorized that when the Genesis children came into proximity with each other, it would trigger accelerated manifestation of abilities. Looks like she was right." The van stopped in a wooded area about half a mile from the facility's perimeter fence. Through the trees, Emma could see the sleek, modern building, its windows glowing softly in the gathering dusk. "This is as close as we can get without triggering their sensors," Wolf said, checking his equipment one last time. Emma took a deep breath, focusing on the techniques she'd practiced. "I'm ready." They moved through the woods silently, Emma following Raven's lead. When they reached the edge of the tree line, Hawk handed Emma a small device that looked like a hearing aid. "Amplifier," he explained. "It'll focus your voice frequencies in the direction you're facing. Just like you practiced." Emma nodded, fitting the device into her ear. She could feel the resonance growing stronger now, pulling her toward the building like a magnet. Somewhere inside, 2 people shared her genetic legacy. 2 people who, like her, had never asked for any of this. "Remember," Raven whispered, "start with the disabling sequence, then immediately switch to the masking frequency. You'll have to maintain it until we reach the security hub." Emma closed her eyes, centering herself. Then she began to sing. It wasn't a song, exactly, more like a series of precisely pitched tones that rose and fell in a complex pattern. To anyone listening, it might have sounded like an avant-garde vocal exercise. But Emma knew each note was targeting specific frequencies in the facility's security system, temporarily scrambling its ability to detect unauthorized presence. As the last note faded, Emma immediately shifted to a low, continuous hum, the masking frequency that would hide them from any backup systems. "It worked," Bear confirmed, checking a device on his wrist. "Perimeter sensors are blind. Move now." They sprinted across the open ground to the fence. Wolf quickly cut through it with a tool that made no sound, and they slipped through one by one, Emma maintaining her humming without breaking rhythm. The closer they got to the building, the stronger the resonance became. Emma could now distinguish 2 distinct signatures, One felt sharp and bright, like sunlight, while the other was deeper, steadier, like the bass line in a complex piece of music. Lydia and Noah. She knew them somehow, though they'd never met. They reached a service entrance where Hawk quickly bypassed the electronic lock. Inside, the corridors were eerily empty, all white walls and polished floors, more like a high-end medical facility than a prison. "Security hub is 2 levels down," Raven whispered, leading them to a stairwell. "Stay close." As they descended, Emma's humming became more difficult to maintain. The resonance from Lydia and Noah was growing overwhelming, making it hard to focus on the precise frequency needed to mask their presence. "Something's wrong," she gasped between hums. "I can feel them too strongly. They're in pain." Raven's expression darkened. "They must have started the extraction process. We need to hurry." They reached the security hub, a room filled with monitors showing different areas of the facility. 2 guards sat at the controls, but before they could react, Wolf and Bear had subdued them silently. "Do it now," Hawk urged Emma. The full shutdown sequence. Emma took a deep breath and began the most complex sequence she had learned, a rising and falling pattern that mimicked the activation codes for the facility's central systems. As she sang, the monitors flickered, then went dark one by one. "System override complete," a computerized voice announced. "Emergency protocols engaged. All containment units unlocking for evacuation." "That's our cue," Raven said. "Wolf, Bear, take the east wing for Noah. Hawk and I will get Lydia from the west. Emma, you're with us." They split up, moving quickly through the now darkened corridors. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow, and distant alarms could be heard from other parts of the building. Emma followed Raven and Hawk, the pull toward Lydia growing stronger with each step. They encountered 2 more guards, but Hawk neutralized them efficiently before they could raise an alarm. Finally, they reached a door marked Containment Unit 2. Raven swiped a keycard taken from one of the guards, and the door slid open. Inside, strapped to a medical table surrounded by equipment, was a girl about Emma's age. Her pale skin was covered in electrodes, and in 4 dripped clear fluid into her arm. Despite her situation, there was something regal about her: high cheekbones, platinum blonde hair, and eyes that snapped open the moment Emma entered the room. Eyes that were the same unusual amber color as Emma's. "You came," Lydia whispered, her voice hoarse. "I knew you would. I saw you in my dreams." "We need to move," Hawk said urgently, working to disconnect Lydia from the machines. "The system reset won't last much longer." Emma approached Lydia, drawn by an instinct she couldn't explain. When their hands touched, a jolt of energy passed between them, making both girls gasp. "You're Emma," Lydia said with certainty. "May's daughter." The voice. "And you're Lydia," Emma replied, somehow knowing what to do. She began to sing softly, not a security sequence this time, but a healing melody her mother had documented in the resonance protocol. As the notes filled the room, color returned to Lydia's cheeks. The puncture mark from the 4 sealed itself, and her breathing steadied. "How did you do that?" Raven asked, looking stunned. "I don't know," Emma admitted. "It just happened." Lydia sat up, her movements already stronger. "It's the resonance. When we're together, our abilities amplify. I can see possibilities, futures that might be. You can heal and transform with sound." "We need to get Noah," Emma said, feeling the other presence still calling to her. "This way," Lydia said with certainty, sliding off the table and standing on shaky legs. "I can feel him too." They moved quickly through the corridors, Lydia leading despite her weakened state. They met Wolf and Bear coming from the opposite direction, supporting between them a young Asian man who looked to be in worse shape than Lydia had been. "Noah," Lydia breathed, rushing forward. The moment the 3 Genesis children came together, something extraordinary happened. A visible wave of energy pulsed outward from them, momentarily illuminating the corridor with golden light. Noah's eyes flew open, his injuries visibly healing as the energy flowed through him. "The triad," he gasped. "It's real." "What's happening?" Hawk demanded, looking alarmed. "What May predicted," Raven said, her voice filled with awe. "When 3 or more of the Genesis children come together, they create a harmonic resonance that amplifies their abilities exponentially." Noah stood straighter, his strength returning rapidly. "We need to go. Now. They're coming." As if on cue, the sound of boots echoed from both ends of the corridor. "Too late," Wolf said grimly, raising his weapon. "We're surrounded." Emma looked at Lydia and Noah, feeling a strange certainty settle over her. "No," We can get out of this. Together. The three Genesis children moved instinctively, forming a triangle. Emma began to sing, her voice clear and powerful. Noah placed his hands on the floor, and Emma could feel him somehow connecting with the building's electrical systems. Lydia closed her eyes, her face serene as she appeared to sift through possible futures. There, Lydia said suddenly, pointing to a seemingly solid wall. That's our way out. Noah nodded, sending a surge of electricity through the wall that revealed a hidden maintenance tunnel. Emergency evacuation route. They didn't show me everything when they scanned my mind, but I saw this. The team rushed into the tunnel just as armed figures appeared at both ends of the corridor. The last thing Emma saw before the hidden door sealed behind them was a man in a lab coat staring directly at her, his expression not angry but fascinated. The tunnel led them to a service exit half a mile from where they'd left the van. As they emerged into the night air, Emma felt both exhilarated and terrified by what had just happened. That was just 3 of us, Noah said quietly as they hurried through the woods. Imagine what all 6 could do together. We need to find the others, Lydia agreed. The twins are in danger. I saw it while they were scanning me. And Marcus. What about Marcus? Emma asked. Lydia's expression grew troubled. He's been with them the longest. Almost a year. I don't know if he's still himself. They reached the van and piled in, Wolf taking the wheel and speeding away from the facility. In the distance, sirens wailed as the directive mobilized to recapture their escaped subjects. Where to now? Bear asked, looking to Raven. The secondary safe house, she decided. We need to regroup, get these 3 somewhere secure to recover. Emma sat between Lydia and Noah, feeling the resonance between them settling into a steady, harmonious hum. For the first time since Maxwell had revealed the truth about her origins, she felt something like peace. What happens next? She asked softly. Noah looked at her, his dark eyes intense. We find the twins. We rescue Marcus if we can. And then we finish what our parents started, Lydia completed. We make sure the Genesis project is used for healing, not destruction. Emma thought of Maxwell, who had given his life to set her on this path. Of her mother, who had encoded her greatest discovery into her daughter's DNA to keep it safe. Of Victor, whose fate remained unknown. She thought of the simple life she'd left behind, the hospital corridors, the patients she'd sung to, the ordinary future she'd imagined for herself. That life was gone forever. In its place was something both frightening and wondrous, a destiny intertwined with these strangers who somehow felt like family, a power she was only beginning to understand, and a responsibility that spanned generations. As the van sped through the night, Emma made a silent promise to Maxwell, to her mother, and to herself. She would master this gift. She would find the others. And together, they would ensure that the song of Genesis would be one of healing, not destruction. The orphan who had sung to a dying billionaire was gone. In her place was Emma Chun, voice of Genesis, daughter of May, carrier of the future. And her song was just beginning.